Hello world, this is Badassatron bringing you LEGO Transformers Nebula. Now, it took me a really long time to figure out what to build for this year's All-Spark Assembly, and in the end, I think I could have made something a little better in terms of alt modes, but I think the combined mode is still really good. For those of you unaware, this year's All-Spark Assembly was all about mocks that could combine in some way. In my case, it is a jet transformer with an assist unit. So without further ado, let's take a look at the main transformer. So of the two jets, this is the one I would consider Nebula, because this is the one that actually can transform. Because I'm kind of poor, you might notice some parts desperation, like I've used this instead of a basic 1x1 clip. I ended up using one of these like robot hands, and there's a lot of like no color matching at all. Again, parts desperation. I'm poor. Well, not poor, but it's a mix of being poor and it's a mix of like being really lazy and not willing to actually buy all these pieces in like the same color. Anyways, it's back to Nebula. It's kind of a rough jet mode. It's got the vague shape of a jet. We've got like a nose cone with some inverted wings. At the back, we've got some kind of like sloped details, which is not aerodynamic at all, but makes the robot mode look a little better, and I don't mind that much. At the back, we do have some engines here. The actual jet itself is very gappy. There's a gap right here, here. Overall, not the most cohesive alt mode. At the bottom, he does have, I guess, a gun, but if you look at it like directly from the bottom, I think you could probably tell what it's gonna be. He also has a lot of exposed studs, which I've left open because A, there's a combine mode, and B, it transforms easier with leaving those studs exposed, and I'd rather have the transformation a little bit more comfortable to do than make it look a little less smoother. Another major downside of this, you may have noticed I like to shift this front part up. That's because this clip right here is kind of loose, so at times it can cause the entire front of the jet to just raise up like that. I couldn't really find a way to make that peg into anything, so yeah, not exactly the most cohesive jet in the world, but I do really like how it looks, so at least it's got that going for it. Next, I'm going to talk about the assist unit, which I'm going to call Stella, which is Latin for star. If you could not tell, that everyone's names are going to be space themed, because they're all like supposed to be sort of spaceships, I guess. Getting Nebula back, Stella is a lot bigger. It's bigger, and it's a lot less gappy, and overall, despite just being an assist unit, I think this is actually the better alt mode of the two. I think the nose cone is kind of ugly with this anti-stud, but I couldn't really come up with a way to get rid of that. I mean, of course, I could have this like nose cone piece I used it, I could have used like the inverted version of it, and then I could have covered that stud up with like a cheese slope or something. But I found it like to shift forward a lot, and I found that really annoying, and so I prefer this, mainly because it doesn't shift around as much. Coming around to the nose cone, there is still a couple bit of gaps, but it is not nearly as noticeable as Nebula, so I don't mind that much. The nose cone kind of tapers into this middle section, which obviously has these bald joints. And it tapers out into this V shape with these large thrusters in the back. They are huge, and I really like how they look. The wheels are kind of there just for detail. They're not necessarily meant to be like rolling wheels. I just thought it would have been nice to add a little bit of detail there. And then at the top we have some wings. They can kind of flare out straight, but if I'm being completely honest, I think that looks really ugly. So I like to keep them in this angled Y shape. Now for a size comparison, here are Nebula and Stella with a minifigure. Nebula is definitely completely out of scale. This is either a really big minifigure or a really tiny spaceship. And Stella I think is even worse, because I would imagine Stella is like this giant like battleship kind of thing, which is definitely not the case with the minifigure. Now we'll transform Nebula, and it's kind of a rough process, I'll be honest. I'm gonna come into the nose cone, and I'll just kind of split, and then this entire assembly will kind of just move up to get out of the way for now. This middle section in the back is going to come down and just fold here, and we can rotate these pieces to surround the thrusters and make some feet. The wings will rotate 180 degrees and kind of just sit on the side of what will be the robot mode legs. This section right here will rotate around and come up. This assembly will kind of crumple down to kind of form what will be the body. We can rotate the head, rotate the feet, like so. The arm, these panels will kind of fold up to be some sort of shoulder armor. And then we can angle the shoulders so that what was the cockpit can fold forward to become some hands. We will snap the leg off because parts. And here we have Nebula in her robot mode. Here we have Nebula in her robot mode, and I do quite like it. The angle her neck is at makes it so that if you kind of want her in a normal pose, you have to slouch her forward a little bit because she has this terribly hunchbacked neck. But at some angles, I don't think it's too bad. Coming down to the legs, I like how the thrusters become embedded into the feet. Because she is in space, she could probably use that to move around in zero gravity. The middle of the thrusters ends up folding up to become her chest, and it kind of matches with the shoulder pads, creating this kind of imaginary like silhouette of like some armored shape, and I quite like that. The wings of the jet become some sort of like skirt details that can just like flay in the wind. Although they can sit flush with the robot mode leg, but I find imagining them as a dress looks better and frees up a lot of articulation. The hands are admittedly a little bit abstract. I guess she's got like knife hands. And they're a little on the tinier side too, so she's not really going to be doing much with these little baby hands. I like the head design. It's not that complex, but I like how it looks, and again, I just kind of like how the neck is mounted on. It will make more sense when we combine later, I promise. The entire body right here isn't pegged onto anything, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, this clip right here is really loose, so Nebula, she'll like to come apart and her entire upper body will sometimes just move up, so that's a shame. But overall, I really do like the robot mode. For a size comparison, here she is with a minifigure. You can see she's a little bit taller. And here she is with Stella. Articulation. The head can move left and right and is on a swivel. Though you have to be careful because, like I said, this entire assembly is loose. Similarly, the shoulders can move forward and back, in and out. You can move the shoulder pads to get a little bit more articulation in if you do so prefer. At the, what I would guess would call like extension of the shoulder, you can move it out as well. The elbow can move forward and back, and there is no articulation at the hands. At the thighs, you do have a forward and back and outward motion. The skirt can move outwards and rotate forward and back. At the, I guess, knee, you can move it forward and back, and there is ankle pivot, but it's a little bit high up, so it may not be that useful, or that, at the very least, not that good looking. And that's kind of all the articulation you can get out of Nebula. So let's get her into her combined mode. Okay, first step to combining is simply just straightening out her arms, just to move them out of the way. And now we can just fold the entire top half back. And now, for clearance sake, we're gonna move the legs down. So this top part right here there's just enough room to rotate 180 degrees. We will also rotate this piece around, and then this hole right here is actually going to peg into the stud. Oh, before I do that, we'll move the legs even more just to get them out of the way. Rotate this whole assembly around, straighten the arms, and then rotate this top assembly back, just so the anti-stud isn't facing outside. We can peg it in like that. The head can rotate around. The shoulders will rotate up, and the nose cone will kind of form to make some sort of collar around Nebula's head. And we can fold these shoulder pads up. Next, we're going to take the legs. We'll straighten one out, rotate 180 degrees, and then we're gonna rotate the foot back, and then transform it again to recreate the booster shape. And then this entire thing is gonna break on me, but it'll fold up. We can move the wing out of the way. I kind of want that booster shape in the back right here. And of course it falls off again. There we go. And then finally the wing will just move forward and kind of rest here. We can do the same thing to the other leg. Let us pray that it doesn't come unpegged too much. It fell out of my hands. But we can retransform this into the booster. Struggle rotating the wing up. There we go. Get everything kind of situated. The leg will fall off again. But here we have Nebula in her combined mode. Okay, to get Stella into her combined mode, we're gonna fold the sides of the cockpit out, and the entire thing's gonna fall off on me. And it will just kind of fold out, and then this entire assembly right here will rotate up. The thrusters will come out and rotate so that the wheels are kind of facing backwards. Then that gives enough room for this thing to fold up. And we have Stella ready to combine. Finally, to combine Nebula and Stella, we have this 1x1 stud here and this 1x1 clip here. We have a stud here, a anti-stud here, and I'm not sure if I can get it on camera because it's kind of dark, but we can peg that there. Peg this here. Fold up the sides of the cockpit from Stella. Rotate the thrusters from angle these top wings how I so prefer. And here we have Nebula and Stella combined. When Nebula and Stella combine, they form this giant armored space station robot fusion thing that I like to call Supernova. And I love this combined mode so much. It gives me kind of like mobile armor vibes from Gundam, where it's quite literally just the Gundam but with like a giant jetpack on. Or maybe if you're not familiar with that, then like Optimus Prime and Jetfire from the movies. But it still feels like different enough. Like I think the core robot from Nebula combines so well into Stella that this thing looks like it could be its like own robot. Now, it doesn't have legs, which means it's going to fall. Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate, but that doesn't mean I don't like how Supernova looks. She's got like a mono leg. I like to see this as maybe a giant thruster of sorts. Up in the middle of the chest, we have what was the cockpit of Nebula's jet mode, as well as the wings acting as some sort of like additional chest pieces. I think that looks really, really nice. The thrusters actually end up as arms for Supernova. So she has pyromaniac tendencies, I suppose. The wings form the wings from Stella stay wings, but I think it's a lot less practical and more so ornamental at this point. But that doesn't mean I don't love the shaping of Supernova. Coming to the back, it's honestly quite clean. You can still see the thrusters from Nebula's jet mode are still here to provide additional boosts. Got some grille details here. At these sides of the robot, it's very compact. There's still a bit of gaps, but there's enough like clips and hinges to make it look like machinery, and I absolutely dig that look. One thing I really like about Supernova is how stable she is. Like, I thought it's strange because Nebula was such an like loose robot, but with Stella giving her support, Supernova here is incredibly stable. Like, I can shake really, really hard and she stays together. And I think that was a really, really great accomplishment. And for a size comparison, here she is with a minifigure. And yeah, Supernova is definitely one of my biggest mocks, besides Devastator, but that's besides the point, it's Devastator. Yeah, she towers over a minifigure. Not nearly enough to be in scale, but she's still very, very big. Fortunately, she doesn't have that much articulation. Her arms are on a ball joint, but they're mounted really, really far back, so you can't really do much without making it look really awkward. The wings are also attached on ball joints, as well as this hinge right here. So you can kind of have her wings folded back if you wanted to get her in some sort of maybe resting or docked position. Her head still retains the same articulation, and this is kind of the main reason why I had it the robot mode head of Nebula, attached on such a weird hinge, because I think it just looks so good on Supernova and gives it a lot more character when you're trying to pose the head. Although I will admit it does look really weird on Nebula, so yeah. Because there is just a mono leg, there's no articulation down there. So honestly, Supernova is kind of meant to just stand there and look cool. Although I definitely think she does that incredibly effectively. But that's all I have to say about Supernova, so I will see you all in the next one.